Hello, Internet. This is Kopitiam Council. New week, new episode, and especially this week, this is a very exciting week for those who are especially Sabahans out there. And I'm Haffisz,
And I'm Adi.
and just straight into it. Why do I say Sabahan might be excited for this episode, Adi?
Well, firstly, if any of you have watched the video on our TikTok and our podcast about me suddenly being up at the courthouse in Sabah and Kota Kinabalu, the court has finally gathered on Thursday to last week to decide whether or not the Sabah Law Society is able to pursue a case against the federal government on Sabah's 40% revenue. Now, this wasn't what happened on Thursday. Wasn't exactly us getting the 40%. It was just us getting the rights to pursue. Because 2 years ago, this action was launched by the Sabah Law Society, but the High Court granted them the leave to actually pursue the case. But then the federal court challenged it at the Court of Appeal, saying that no, this is not allowed. So that's why we had Thursday's court case. So I was there at about 11 a.m. because when I got the message, case was supposed to start at around 9 a.m. Then they pushed it to become the fifth case to be heard of the day. So when I made it around 11 a.m., crowds kind of started dispersing or started going to do other things as well, because they found out that, it's not on time as it says it was. And then it started about 12, and then it ended around 1 or 2 p.m. Too much to everyone's disappointment. The decision was only to be made this week on Friday, on the 24th of May. Yeah. So what was very interesting was because at the last minute, the Sabah state government filed to become the second appellant to alongside the federal government, which means that they are on the side of the federal government, challenging the High Court's decision in this Court of Appeal. So in a way, they were against the Sabah Law Society, and that's what got everybody very confused. Why is suddenly Sabahans versus Sabahans in this scenario here? We would never think that because we thought this was 40%. Everyone Sabahan would try to work towards this, but then now we saw a Sabahan legal representative, going against the Sabah Law Society on the ground, saying that they do not have the legal standing or the locus standi or the manner of which the Sabah Law Society has proceeded with the case. They said that it was in a way erroneous and wasn't correct. So I kind of see it as gatekeeping, but Hafiz, what do you think about the events that has transpired so far?
Oh, there's so many things to unfold, especially here. Let's put aside the presence of Tengku Fuad there. Like, it's still in the statement of Hajiji and also Sabah State Haji, they didn't mention in even one sentence of this. So we need to make speculations out of this. Otherwise, it's something big questions that not answered. So apart from that, which we're going to talk about later, it seems to be delaying tactics here being deployed in so many levels. I was surprised when you said it was supposed to be the agenda number 1 and then push forward to agenda number 5. These are the little tactics, whatever that they do, they wants to delay this case. I don't know what's the motive behind this, but certainly we can look into how other players as well, whatever that said, especially on the 16th, that Fuad, when he came out from the chambers, one of the words that he used to describe SLS was busybody. Now, Adi, this is a very he's a top lawyer, make no mistake, but you don't simply use such term to describe your so-called whoever that you're against in the chamber.
Your learned friends, basically.
Your learned friends, yes, especially to describe an association. It's not just individual to busybody in this. And here's the thing, Adi. Tengku Fuad presence last minute, that's one thing. And he was allowed to intervene as an intervener without a show of any letter as a representative of Sabah State. And then Jeffrey Kittingan made, I think it was a Facebook post, if I'm not mistaken, that Sabah State government did not as a government, the cabinet did not appoint him to represent Sabah. Hajiji did not address this in his official letter on the same day. So I think, we just making assumptions here that I think Tunku Fuad was there on the personal capacity Hajiji as a chief minister, not representing Sabah state government, just to some sort of, again, this is one of the delaying tactics, if I read this correctly. Well, you were there, you observe a lot of things. Of course, we can say all the facts that you mentioned, but I'm here in KL just reading into what I read, and this is what I think come into my observation. A lot of people questioning why it was last minute. This was already known, like back in, I think it was in late 2023. Certainly more questions out of, we thought on 16 we finally get the answer. Now we got more questions out of incidents instead of the answer. So I think that's what especially those who are in second hand, third hand, feeling right now, Adi.
Yeah, in a way, we're being taken for a ride here. I mean, first it was delayed, and then now we have decisions being made the 24th. It's like I said, it's a delaying tactic, and I think it's to the benefit of the federal government. This is what they do best when it comes to handling any negotiations that come from Sabahans. They always have some kind of excuse. And before it was, they said the 40% is conditional based on the financial ability of the federal government. So that means that they are saying that, okay, we can give it to you, but I don't think we are able to afford or even can sustain ourselves. So, but that's more of a federal government's skill issue rather in managing the economy than ours, because this 40% is ours. It's written in the constitution. And one thing I found interesting was that people saying that Tunku Fuad said this was an aspirational clause, which I would like to challenge, because I think it's a conditional clause. Like I said, it's in our constitution. And if you look at the history on why it's placed into the constitution beforehand, before MA63 came into being, there was the Intergovernmental Committee report, which assessed the viability and the needs for state building for Sabah if it wants to enter into an agreement with Malaya and Singapore and Sarawak to form the federation. And one of it was about the revenue sharing. They said at the time, I think it was 2/5 revenue, then later became changed to 40%. In the constitution. So this was a huge agreement, a huge aspiration made by Sabahan leaders to say that, okay, we are only going to do this with you, we're going to partner with you if we can have this respected. It's a conditional clause, not an aspirational clause. If it was aspirational, the wording would be something along the lines of, we hope to see this fulfilled eventually. And it hasn't. That is the issue, I think, when it comes to this 40% here, the idea of aspirational clause or conditional clause. Conditional, I think, is the operational word here, because if not, why are we fighting for this for the past, how many years, these past few decades? Why are the leaders saying that we need this in order to sustain our development? Why do they keep saying that this is our history, this is our rights that is guaranteed under the constitution? So I don't understand the wording of aspirational. But then now, when you were talking about the nature of Tunku Fuad's appointment as the representative, I think you mentioned one player here, which I think has kind of slipped under the radar here, which is the Attorney General, the Sabah State Attorney General. Now, maybe I don't understand how it works when you appoint as a state representative, but I'm pretty sure. I thought when I was there, people were asking who is representing the Sabah state, right? The obvious answer first would be, why not the Sabah State Attorney General? And apparently it wasn't. And then the second guess was somehow Tunku Fuad, because he usually does represent the state government. But wouldn't that mean that the permission doesn't exactly come from just the chief minister, but also the Attorney General Chambers, the AGC, right? Wouldn't they have, because they are the first port of call to be summoned when it comes to handling this, right? But then giving it to Tunku Fuad. Is this a show of lack of confidence in the Sabah State AG in preference for Fuad, or is there, like you said, a personal capacity bypassing of it? I do not know the procedure here, because if it wasn't went for the AGC, right? Does that mean Tunku Fuad doesn't have the legal standing? And I'm using the same words in the same context, because he says Sabah Law Society doesn't have the legal standing to pursue this. So if he doesn't have the State Attorney General's permission, right, or approval, or just the chief ministers, does that mean he doesn't also have the legal standing to represent? Because I think one of the things that Jeffrey mentioned was also something along those lines there. He really represent the interests of the state government? Because the state government's been saying 40%, and the CM has been very supportive of the Sabah Law Society for the past 2 years, ever since they initiated it. He's always been mentioning press releases, and even the press statement he made in the letter last week, he did mention that he still supports the Sabah Law Society's initiative. So, like you said, more questions than answers here.
Yeah, very ironically, even in Hajiji's statement and also State AG, they mentioned also that they in support of SLS. This is a positive impact and allow they cherish the opportunity for SLS to bring this forward to the court to decide. But at the same time, I think right hand, left hand doing different things. See, and state government didn't put this at rest. What they do is they, I think, simply makes more questions out of this. And yeah, I mean, Tunku Fuad also, if I'm not mistaken, that he was when he was questioning the locus standi, other people also, especially James Chins also mentioned in his X, that he is also, because he acts against the desire of whole Sabahans. Like who's in their Sabahans sane mind would not pursue this, right? Like even rationally, put aside legal technicality, but even on the common man, like this is the desire of every Sabahan to see this true. But here comes last minute, Tunku Fuad walk in, then says one thing aspirational. What does that even mean? Secondly, SLS didn't have any locus standi. When they started this 2 years ago, none of this was reviewed. I mean, the last time it was reviewed is that, I think, 1974. Any government before then like had every opportunity to do this, to correct the wrong, if they see this as wrong, to correct the wrong, and they never did up until SLS wants to make it public awareness also. What they did, I think, pretty much like what they wanted to launch this into some sort of a civil court, is because now we're talking about it. Sabahan now actually has something to talk about it. Otherwise, the state government just dismiss any possible talks or discussion about this. It's just like, we are still in the review and we are doing this. What they still keep saying, this is insane on any level of administration. You keep saying that Sabah state government and federal government are in the talks doing this. You keep saying this for many, many years, and there's no transparency, there's no updates. At least give us updates every 6 months if you're serious about it. And I think Roger Chin also very correctly pointed out that there's certain, action talks louder than words. State government needs to put in place a follow through action, call of action to do once they said something, right? Otherwise, it's just gonna be the same old. First, delaying tactics. Second of all, it's just, I don't know, so some sort of like looking at Sabahan people like a bunch of foolish people, just like keep saying things over and over and over again, like a broken record. We sick of it. As Sabahan, we sick of just saying the same thing and then treating us like a kid. And especially now that a new drama with Tunku Fuad involved as well. Like you mentioned, that he represented a lot of time for Sabah state government, but in this case, I don't think he is. He is just in there just to mess around, and then that's why it was supposed to be announced on the same day, Adi, on Thursday. But that's why they push it a bit, because there's a new player in the chamber, which is astonishing. If this is one of the tricks in their playbook, we are not shocked, but we are very, very saddened with this development. Definitely.
Definitely disappointing. It's one thing to say that this is the state government stance, and then to have a representative say otherwise. And it does kind of block any possibility for any private organization or private entity to take any of Sabah's rights to court to get to challenge the federal government based on the basis of MA 63. And you mentioned that we don't get a lot of updates, and I have to agree with you because these negotiations that happens on the MA 63 technical committee is done on a government to government basis. It's mostly the Sabah state government and the federal government that is negotiating this, right? And I think this is the only avenue where a public, a representative from the public, which organization, is able to represent us. And to block off the avenue, it means it's kind of like gatekeeping the ability of private organizations to challenge our own governments, because we cannot even hold the federal government accountable for the things that they have not fulfilled for the Sabah state. So on that note, right, I always thought the best strategy to undertake here was that, okay, if you are in discussions with the federal government, that's very good, right? You have one avenue there, but at the same time, you have another avenue to pursue in the legal context. Why does it have to be one or the other, right? Why does it have to be only pursued by a private organization? Why does it have to be pursued by the state government? Why can't these things work to synergize one another? They support one another, right? While the negotiations happen, the legal battle is what can apply more pressure. It's a hammer and anvil tactic that you can employ to strong arm, to leverage the Sabah, to leverage the federal government. So it involves more actors on this battleground. You involve the government side, you involve the civil side as well. I think that is what I felt Sarawak was quite good at. They knew how to handle the pressure, how to apply pressure from different angles against the federal government. But of course, because they have more leverage politically, I think they had was able to wield that more decisively than we do. So that's why we need to be a bit more cooperative with whatever resources that we have, not just, like I said, the government, but other avenues as well. You mobilize. I think when SLS tried to get people to come to support what was happening on the 16th, it was really, really good, because it means that there is that civil pressure as well to push, to show that support. Because if not, federal might see that, oh, okay, not even Sabahans come to support what's going on here. But when early in the morning, when people believed that it was going to be the first agenda, there was a huge crowd gathered. There was people dressed up in traditional outfits. There were people from all kinds of NGOs, civil society organizations came to organize and show their support. That is also another point of pressure that we can have, which was very good on SLS's part, to call for that, to rally people. So it's not a challenge. This is not a struggle that is exclusive to one party. It is a struggle that is universal to every Sabahan. I think every Sabahan has a stake in this. So I don't see the gatekeeping for why this is, being busybody. But busybody for what? These are legal people. These are lawyers who have studied the Constitution. They have studied the Intergovernmental Committee. They've looked through the Cobalt Commission as well, and we look to see how the Constitution has evolved over the past decades. So I think, qualification-wise, it is there, and I think we don't need to stifle any possibility, any potential from anywhere to pressure the federal government. Because at the end of the day, yes, cooperation with the federal government is good, but we need to be a bit more assertive here. Sarawak has been very successful at that. We need to. I think it's a good experiment for us that we keep on trying to push for this. So, but I think, what else do you want to say, Haffiz?
Well, I think yes, you pointed rightly that we don't have enough political leverage, especially over the federal government here, and it should be a lesson learned for us. Since 2018, I guess, is how many Sabah state government has changed, but every time it changed, it's just some sort of like having a similar outcome. Moving forward, Adi, like talking about something more clear, actionable that should be taken by state government is to discuss, to also to lay out the maybe the next 6 months or the next 1 year of what they're gonna do as a state government, because yes, maybe this is a government to government discussion, so maybe not all facts or infos can be leaked to the public, but I'm sure the general things, right? Like how is it going to be the next 6 months? I think this is something that can be done as simple as laying out for the next 6 months, 12 months. I think that should be doable. And I think I would like to see one thing in that agenda, if they were going to pause is the next 6 months or 12 months, is how are they going to pick a mechanisms of how to calculate the 40%? Because Masidi, I think 2 months ago, says that if there's no final decisions about this in July, they're going to appoint a private accessor. So a third party going to come in and decide for us what is the best way forward for to calculate it. Because this is also a huge contention, because no single party can agree on which how to calculate the 40%. Some who's the MP of Tuaran again? Madius Tangau. Madius Tangau says that through income tax should be doable. Some other Sabah political figures says that it may not be the best way forward. So the discussions of this is need to put forward to to be a mainstream, so that everyone knows the transparency of it, and even a normal average Joe out there knows about this, means that it's already being discussed on every level of society, and that's what we want to at least achieve moving forward from here. Otherwise, it's just going to be hush hush again, too busybody, aspirational terms. It just doesn't make sense now. But if we keep our mouth shut and just let government bulldoze, or Hajiji personally bulldoze his way on this, it's gonna embolden people like him this again. Like, okay, don't talk about it, don't busybody about this. You SLS, no local stand on why you want to do this. On the state government, this. If state government have this, why you never pursue this for the last since it was last reviewed in 1974? You had so many times to do this. Yeah, a bit.
I think that's very not conducive at all when you just want to keep blaming when you haven't done the put in the effort yourself. I think everyone has worked at some point towards this goal, and everyone had to relinquish responsibility over at some point. So I think no one can claim 100% credit for what is going on. This is a situation. This is a struggle that's been happening since the last reviews, or even since the formation of Malaysia. Everyone had a part to play, and I don't think we should diminish anybody's contributions. But with that said, right, accountability now I think is what people are demanding for, because why is this happening? And like I mentioned, it's just now about the state attorney general's chambers. It's very difficult to be confident with the ability of the state AG to manage the Sabah state's legal affairs, because they are still pursuing the Territorial Sea Act. They also were handling parts of the Sulu claim, and now other kinds of revamped policies is coming over. That is quite. We will probably mention later. It kind of makes me a bit losing a bit of confidence whether or not it's the AG is able to perform to the best ability that she can. Because we like to blame first and foremost the politicians, right? But what about the institutions themselves that's supposed to safeguard the interests of the state as well? So I think accountability needs to be transparent here. You need to explain why was it that Fuad was appointed. Why is the state attorney general not present for any of this? So what kind of contributions that she has made to support whatever narrative that you are trying to pull? Because now we are split between. We used to think that there was a core struggle between Sabahans, but now it is split. There's two different things saying that. One saying that SLS is busybody. Some say the other is supporting what they are doing. So these are top, very high level individuals here that are talking, or people who are high level representatives. So if they are not able to collectively get their shit together, then where does it lead? What does it say for us, the people who follow them? The people who have no choice but to support them, right? We are being carried by them. The ship, they are the captains, and we're the passengers, right? What does this say for the confidence and integrity of the state moving forwards? That is the issue, I think, when it comes to a lot of people. I think even if ever gets resolved on Friday, whatever happens, whatever decision is made, right? I think there's a bitter poison here already now that this debacle has happened. A bit of this drama that has already muddied a bit of the waters, and I think has tarnished a bit of goodwill from the people of Sabah. So maybe we can talk about more of implications later on, Haffiz.
Yeah, you mentioned about election as well. You mentioned about Warsan, and then more implications. I think that's gonna follow up next. I think that's it for this episode. If you want to follow through the next, what we're gonna talk about how is it matter, not for just Sabahan, but also for the whole Malaysians, and how this incident will affect the next state elections. So coming right up.